If you're watching this video, it means you were scrolling through YouTube, minding your own business, when you saw the title and thought to yourself, you know what? I could use some stronger fingers. Whether that's for climbing harder, opening pickle jars, or strangling your neighbor's noisy cat. These are all legitimate reasons for the pursuit of steely digits. And as most climbers know, one of the classic methods of training to get stronger fingers is using the fingerboard. But what makes this bizarrely shaped piece of apparatus so darn good, and how can we reap the training benefits even more? Well, my friends, all you have to do is watch a little longer, and I'll spill some of my hard-earned secrets from over 15 years of dedicated fingerboarding. One of the first things I ask anyone I'm coaching is when do they do their fingerboard sessions? A common answer to this is at the end of a climbing session. It makes sense in a way. Feel fresh when you're climbing and then finish yourself off on the fingerboard. This is in fact what I did for the first few years of fingerboarding and thought it was absolutely fine. But this is in fact one of the most common mistakes made during fingerboard training and can have disastrous results for your training, leading to both injury and slower gains. Fingerboarding is foremost a very intense form of training that loads the muscles and ligaments in a very targeted way. We need to be fresh when we engage in high intensity fingerboarding training so we're able to achieve maximum intensity. If we've just had a climbing session, there's no way you'll be reaching your maximum potential and therefore not loading the muscles in the way they need to develop higher levels of strength. For that reason, I always do my fingerboard training before a climbing session. And since I started doing this, I've also seen a big improvement in not only my performance on the fingerboard, but also in my climbing performance afterwards. But I'm sure some of you are worried you'll be too tired for climbing after a hard fingerboard session. But the thing is, hard fingerboard sessions shouldn't break you. I mean, I rarely do more than 8 sets of maximum intensity hangs before I call it a day and go climbing. Fingerboarding before climbing actually makes for a really great way to warm your fingers up and get them recruited for pulling hard on the wall. And the long-term benefits of having more fingerboard sessions from fresh are that you get stronger faster. It goes without saying that all grip types can and should be trained. But there are a few golden grip types that help develop finger strength like no other. I know that about 80% of my fingerboard training is spent in one specific grip type, and I really only step away from this when I'm looking to train for something more specific. And that grip is the half crimp. A half crimp is when all your fingers are raised into roughly a 90-degree position, unlike the open hand, which is a more relaxed grip type, or the full crimp, which involves the mechanical advantage of the thumb over the index finger. The reason the half crimp is so good is because it engages the forearm in the most direct way and therefore provides the best platform for muscular stimulus. I mean, that's not to say that open hand or full crimp shouldn't be trained, but half crimp should take up the majority of focus, and full crimp shouldn't be trained at high loads on a regular basis. The other golden grip type I've come to love is an even more intense version of the half crimp. It's the 3-finger half crimp. I discovered this grip type when I was projecting a hard climb away from home and I needed a way to warm up my fingers on my van fingerboard before trying it. I realized that by dropping the pinky, it was a high intensity way to activate the forearms. Now I use it all the time for training and getting my fingers prepped for trying hard on a climb. The bonus of the 3-finger half crimp is that it is suitably intense that for many climbers, it might be a way to make a hang harder before actually adding weight or making the edge smaller. Just watch out, as it is an intense grip type and you'll be more susceptible to injury than with a standard half crimp. If you find the front 3 half crimp hard or even a bit too tricky, a good intro into using it is by alternating hands. So use a front 3 half crimp on one hand and the standard half crimp on the other. Just make sure to alternate to the other hand for your next set so you're not creating any imbalances. So to conclude on that, most of your fingerboard training should be using the half crimp. It is definitely the best all-round grip for building finger strength. But also, the 3-finger half crimp is a great grip to add to your fingerboard sessions to stimulate the forearms in a new way. It doesn't matter how fresh you are for your session if you're not resting enough between your sets. I've seen quite a lot of fingerboard training apps out there that only give you a 2-minute break between your sets in a maximum intensity set. And 2 minutes is just not enough to recover between sets for strength training. Instead, a standard rest period for me is 4 minutes between max hangs at full intensity. However, earlier this year I experimented with my rest times between hangs to see what made the biggest difference. I'd recently learned that for full recovery between any high intensity strength set, a minimum time of 10 minutes was actually needed for full recovery and replenishment of the muscles. My initial reaction was, there's no way I can do that. If your warm-up takes you about 15 to 20 minutes and you're doing 8 sets with 10 minutes between each set, your fingerboard session is going to be about an hour and a half at the very least. It's just not time efficient. But that wasn't the case. By resting 10 minutes or longer between sets, I found a couple of things. One, you're way better recovered and you can therefore try harder in each set. And two, you've loads of time to get on with other things. Resting 2 minutes isn't enough for full recovery, and resting 4 minutes is a bit of an odd amount of time where you can't really do too much in between. But if you allow 10 to 15 minutes, you'll be fully recovered and able to get on with other stuff such as chores, or even work during the workday if you work from home. So to conclude on that, don't take every training app at face value. Listen to your body. If you need longer rest, take it. I usually rest 4 to 5 minutes between finger strength sets and up to a total of 15 minutes if I'm in the house all day. Experiment with it and don't be afraid to rest longer and see how you feel. When you hear someone say, train to your max, what does that actually mean? Well, your max is a point just before failure on any set. It could be a max hang on a small edge or a max set of endurance hangs, but bottom line, it's finding that line just before you fail. When we're trying to develop our finger strength, it's really important that we know what our max is, as this will allow us to better plan our training. Finger strength can cover quite a wide spectrum of things. Some climbers will say it's being able to hang as long as possible off an edge, whilst others will say it's being able to hang off the smallest edge. The truth is, they're both right. But when I talk about training maximal finger strength, what I mean is pulling your hardest on an edge for a very small period of time, generally between 1 and 7 seconds. The key part of that sentence is pulling your hardest, because in order to build maximal strength and be able to hold on to smaller holds, we need to be operating maximally in this short time frame. This is the sweet spot to training your fingers' maximum strength. But how do you find your maximum, and how do you train to surpass it? Well, here's what I do. First, I want to find my finger's maximum strength threshold. The threshold will be different depending on the hold size, grip type, and length of hang. But for the sake of this argument, we're imagining a standard 20mm edge in a half crimp position for 7 seconds. First, you want to warm up slowly by incrementally increasing the intensity by adding weight. The first time you do this, you want to go really slowly, only adding a maximum of 5 kilos at a time. But as you get nearer to your threshold, you'll only be adding in 1 or half kilo increments. Make sure to rest fully between each set, and I'd advise only an absolute minimum of 4 minutes rest between each hang. Eventually you'll get to your limit, and you know this because most likely you'll fail on the set you go beyond your limit. For example, if I can do 7 seconds with a 20 kilo weight, but fail at 21 kilo, my max threshold is 20 kilo. But here's the next question. How do you train to surpass that max level? There are many ways to do this, but one thing I've been doing a lot lately is pushing my max hang to the point that I can't even reach 7 seconds, and instead failing at around 3 to 5 seconds. Training at this intensity should be done infrequently and after a good amount of consolidation. My session usually looks like this. I warm up to reach maximum 7-second hang by gradually adding weight until you get to the point of failure on that 7-second hang. Then I do 3 more sets at that 7-second threshold, and then 4 sets, increasing the weight incrementally until I could only hang 3 to 5 seconds. This really intense session stimulates max strength in the fingers, and it can be done in any hold type in any grip position. The only thing to watch out for is that consistently operating at maximal threshold to failure is the highest amount of strain you can put on your fingers. So you just need to listen to your body and perhaps only do these sorts of sessions towards the end of a longer period building up to it. To get stronger fingers, you really need to remember these 3 words: consistency, consolidation, and stimulation. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Not that kind of stimulation, mate. It's all good having the best fingerboards and knowing all the best exercises, but mindset is the key to success. Let's start with being consistent. Consistency is the most important, and it's also the hardest to achieve. Hands up how many climbers watching this have started a fingerboard routine 1 month only to give it up the next month. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, me too. I know I'm guilty of this. In order to make a good, solid gains, we need to have consistent training plans that span weeks into months and eventually into years. Only then will we see long-term results. To maintain consistency, it's important that a fingerboard training plan fits into your lifestyle and is manageable even in our worst weeks. So don't jump in there with an elite level plan with 20 hours a week of training. Start off small and see if you can stick to it for a month before adding any more. Once we build a plan we can stick to, then we need to consolidate our strength gains by tracking our progress and adjusting our training accordingly. It's not just a case of trying to pull as hard as possible every fingerboard session, but we need to consolidate our strength gains with periods of lower intensity and higher volume training as part of a longer term training plan. A good strategy for beginners is to do 2 weeks at 80% of max, 2 weeks at 90% of max, and then 2 weeks at 100% of max, with a week or 2 off rest before your next cycle. That way, you gradually build up the intensity to avoid injury. And lastly, stimulation, meaning we need to not get too repetitive with our training that our body stops being stimulated to adapt. It's very easy to fall into the false sense of security with exercises and routines that we feel comfortable doing. But really, what we need to do is to keep our body guessing. What's next? After a 6-week cycle of weighted 2-arm dead hangs on a 20mm edge, try shock loading the fingers by doing a new cycle of 1-arm dead hangs, or instead of increasing the weight, make the edge smaller, or even take a break from fingerboarding altogether and do a campus board cycle instead. And it's okay to do different exercises in the same cycle, just be careful not to overload yourself, as the body can only handle so much before it breaks. As I said before, start small and build up. Consistency is key. Consolidate what you gain and always keep your body guessing with new exercises to stimulate it. No matter how long we've been training, there's always more we can do to get more from it. Even 15 years on, I'm still learning new ways to train and get better at climbing. It's just a case of listening to what others have to say. And that's all for now, folks. If you haven't already, like and subscribe and ding that wee bell for notifications on when the next video is out. See you guys next time.